is kind of summing up and expressing what's been happening over these last days with the intensity of outside forces, you might say, because the phone calls and the emails and the visits that have been had over these last days have this theme, you might say. And there is a story, an old story, that somewhat sums it up for us. Let's see if we can relate to this. It's the story of that man who was somewhat disgruntled with his life. He'd attained some kinds of success, but deep down inside himself, he wasn't happy. He wasn't content. So he set out to find a master, a being who could maybe point him in the right direction as to what he had to do. So indeed he did. And he did find that master and ask him, telling him that deep inside himself he had not found contentment or happiness. So the master looked at him and said, well, you have a quest. The task that's before you is to go and find the happiest man in the world. So our seeker was very, very happy with this. So he immediately set out on his quest to find the happiest man in the world. And his master had told him, when you find the happiest man in the world, you must ask for you to wear his shirt. So our seeker went out into the world, and he had, as we can imagine, or from our own experience, had many, many adventures. And in every place he went, he asked, did anyone know where he could find the happiest man in the world? And he was very often pointed in the direction of a being, but he always found that when he spoke to this being, that happiness was just a facade that they were wearing, and behind their facade of happiness was sadness or disappointment or many other forms of emotion. But his quest went on and on, until finally he came to a village set beside a large and dark forest. So as he was sitting at the coffee shop, he posed the question that he had posed so often and in so many places before. Do you know where I can find the happiest man in the world? And strangely, the proprietor of the coffee shop said to him, listen. And as our seeker listened, he could hear laughter. So he got up from his table, he went out, and he began to follow the sound of the laughter. And it led him into the deep, deep forest until he came to a little clearing, and there he saw that sitting under a tree was a being wearing a big sombrero. But out from under this sombrero was coming the sound of laughter. So our seeker went over to approach this being and asked him point blank, are you the happiest man in the world? And of course, in reply, he got a trilling sound of laughter, which he took as an affirmative, because there was a certain feeling there that this laughter was genuine. So he told his story. He told his story about how he'd gone to this master, and the master had sent him on this quest to find the happiest man in the world, and when he found him, that he had to request that he could wear his shirt. And from under the sombrero came another lilting sound of laughter. And our seeker said, "Well, what are you laughing at?" And the voice behind the sombrero said, "Look." And with that, the sombrero raised up, and our seeker could see that this being was not wearing a shirt. And so the laughter went on. But then, as the sombrero lifted, our seeker saw that the being who was sitting here laughing was none other than the master who had sent him on this quest. And the seeker said, "What do you mean? Here you are, and you sent me on this chase which has taken me all over the world into all kinds of situations. And here you are, and not only is it you, but you're not wearing any shirt." And with that, a strange thing happened. What was this strange thing that happened for us?
He laughed.
What is it that's happened for us when we now have confronted this that you talk about, Rachel, turning inward? What happens after this? What happens after this? We can end this story. How will we end this story? What happens when, after all of these years, and it's been spoken of stillness and movement, and all of a sudden we find ourselves at the end of the journey still. And the movement of life, which was our quest, what's happened for us? Is it like poof, that master is no more? Or, as you say, Rachel, do we just start to laugh? What's happening for us here in this moment of life?
The shirt doesn't matter anymore.
Yes.
He was supposed to be returning with his shirt or something. That was sort of what the motivation for the search was, but in the end it doesn't really matter.
Yes. And the thing that's been happening over these last days with the phone calls and the meetings and the emails is that each one has indicated the arrival at this place. But some standing there say, well, what was it all for? Why did you do this? Why did you send me on this wild goose chase when it was here all along, and here I'm still suffering, and I'm still got pain, and I'm still got all the shit happening. What comes next when the realization hits us? Do we burst into laughter? Is there a poof? And all of a sudden the illusions of the movement and the journey have gone? Or do we just burst out into laughter? What's happening for you in this place? the recognition of the inevitability of it. What was it that was indicated all along the way for us? What was it in the Master's words in the first place? To wear my shirt and to find I'm not wearing a shirt.
It's almost to step in their shoes and see what it's like. Yeah.
But those visitations and encounters over these last days seem to indicate that we're still in the place where we're thinking that there's something.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
The sea hit, you expect to be rewarded?
Yes,
You expect
absolutely.
something
That there's going to be
magical.
there, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Isn't
Like a
it?
certificate of realisation.
A certificate of Yes. Yes. What is it in this place, Rachel? Now we can call it turning inward, but what are we really finding there? Before the laughter arrives.
There isn't a reward.
Right.
There's a release.
It's kind of like, just lately, the journey and all we've learnt, and then, I've been going through getting angry at, I've done all this, and, I haven't done that for me. And catching myself going, that's not what it was for. So there is this awareness of awakening, and I laugh at myself for why, and it's just this coming back to, there's nothing, it doesn't matter, it diffuses. How much story, I'm just maybe in the last couple of weeks, how I'm able to, I won't say too much really, but it's a bit of a...
What is it that's here? What is it that's here? Here.
It's like the emptiness, is it?
But emptiness is part of the illusion.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. Cannot be. It's not possible. We might feel empty. We might feel emptiness. But it does not exist. Is there any place that you can find in our seeking that there is not movement? Even when we're in meditation, we're still breathing. It doesn't exist. Is this the greatest illusion of all? And what happens when they meet? What is it that's here when poof? The motivation is gone. What is this state of absence of illusion? Not a negation of life, but an absence of illusion. Could it be that both stillness and movement, emptiness and fullness are the illusion? What is here?